Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss Truss's attempts to break into MAGA speech circuit this week and ask if she's going to continue to pose a danger to our society or if she's just grifting now. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So Liz Truss was giving a MAGA-style speech in America this week. As you'd expect, it was her usual brainless nonsense, but there was one part which completely blew me away. She said, and I quote, "You can't triangulate with terrorists. You can't compromise with communists." You can't triangulate with terrorists. What? You know how some people try to sound cleverer than they are by using really long words, but they get it wrong? Jacob Rees-Mogg does it quite often. You listen to them and you think, that word doesn't mean what you think it does. But you sort of get what they're trying to say from the context. I have no idea what she was trying to say here. You can't triangulate with terrorists. What does that even mean? Why would you want to try and triangulate with terrorists, or indeed any other people who might move from time to time? How would that even work? And triangulate for what? Triangulate with terrorists? What? And the thing is, this wasn't some off-the-cuff brain fart. This was in a speech. She wrote it down in advance. Then she looked at it afterwards, because it's important. She's trying to break into the American market, right? Well, for whatever reason, whether it's political or financial, she went, this needs to be a good speech. I need to break my way into America. And so she looked at it later on and went, yes, those are exactly the words I want to use. And more than that, she was so proud of that ill-thought collection of words, she tweeted them in promoting her speech on social media. She's utterly insane. I mean, when even Dominic Cummings thinks she's the maddest person he's known in government, that is saying something. And what got me was she had to explain to the audience at one point what a quango was. She talked about quangos, right? Bashing, the woke civil service. And you go, okay, that's a term that's not familiar in the US, apparently. Okay, so you're asked, oh, what does a quango mean? And you explain, fine. So she had to explain what a quango was, which means someone queried it. Did nobody query her use of the term triangulate with terrorists? Did no one go, what does that mean then? And do you know what I think do you know why I think she's did it? Because it's so off the wall. I actually genuinely, it's not just that it's an inappropriate collection of words. I actually don't know what she was getting at. And then I thought to myself, well, she said you can't triangulate with terrorists and you can't compromise with communists. And I thought, well, the compromise with communists will go down well with the old American Republicans, right? And so I think she's going for alliteration. She thinks that's easier to remember. Bit of the old alliteration. So she compromised with, you can't compromise with communists. Oh, that works. I need to say something about terrorists. You can't. Something beginning with T. And I think she just picked up a dictionary and went, oh, triangulate. Yeah, that'll work. But anyway, on to then her next bit. You can't compromise with communists. Now, just to be clear, what caused her to be the shortest serving prime minister in history, not just British history either, is the gilt market crash after her insane mini budget. The gilt market is not propped up by communists. Private investment in the money markets is basically free market capitalism central. But you could, as I say, at least see how the line, you can't compromise with communists, would go down well with an American audience that knows nothing about her, right? Not that she appeared to have much of an American audience, or indeed any other kind. She boasted about there being lots of conservative energy in the room. The actual room was very reminiscent of the first few days of the Conservative Party conference last autumn. But beyond her insane dribbling on the world stage, what is she actually playing at? Because if I were to be asked, what is the biggest revelation to me as a political observer over the past decade, it would be the way far-right groups are coordinating amongst themselves internationally. The Brexit referendum and the US presidential election later that year first introduced me to the idea of basically the same people working across the world for similar aims. And it's quite funny because we see the way that the various far-right champions within the Conservative Party seem incapable of working together, and they're in the same party. So it's hard to imagine you can get such common purpose amongst different groups in completely different countries. And yet that is what is happening. The far right are not working simply to get people they approve of into power during any given election, because then they know that the democratic process will mean they lose power eventually. They're looking for more permanent power. So it comes as no surprise that these people in both the UK and the USA are attacking apolitical civil servants. In the US, they're referred to as the deep state. In the UK, the woke blob or the wokerati. Different names, but the same thinking. Liz Truss, when speaking in America, alongside Nigel Farage and others of similar intention, had a pop at civil servants. The Telegraph cheerfully published an article about the event in which they pushed Truss's claims that the civil service is full of activists. She said, it's full of activists, trans activists, environmental activists, you name it. Although the Telegraph decided to put the emphasis on trans activists, their headline was, it's full of trans activists, that's the problem. And yet, what is it that these MAGA types want to do about it? Replace non-partisan civil servants with their own people. These would be people who are most certainly, by definition, political activists. And political activists all united in these same narrow politics. And like everything else political extremists do, never stands up to scrutiny. We believe the civil service is full of political activists. We don't have evidence, we're going to behave as if it's fact. And what we're going to do about it is replace them with people replace the people we believe are activists with ones we know are activists. Because after all, how can they judge the replacements to be suitable if they weren't actively pushing their political views onto the public? And as part of her efforts, Truss has been promoting her book as well. She announces herself to America as a former prime minister. She has to keep mentioning that bit because she wasn't in post long enough for the world to have noticed. Interestingly, the front cover of her book introduces her as former prime minister of Great Britain. Now, of course, there's no such thing. Great Britain is just the name of the island that most of us live on, not a country of its own. Yet again, Northern Ireland being airbrushed out of their worldview. And in her speech to this US audience, I say audience, I'm using the word charitably there, she attacked various institutions in the UK, including the Bank of England, the Environment Agency, the Office for Budgetary Responsibility, and the Judicial Appointments Commission. Now, interestingly, she singles these organisations out for attack, because consider what they are, what they represent. The Bank of England, especially since independence, takes some of the party politics out of monetary policy. The Environment Agency and the Office for Budgetary Responsibility make sure that the public can get non-partisan assessments of the impact of certain government policies. The Judicial Appointments Commission is, of course, a way of appointing judges without political interference, as happens in America. She was not just arguing that these organisations should do things differently. From what I can tell, she was strongly suggesting they shouldn't even exist. You know, there's a sense in which we should always be worried about speeches like this, I think. Yes, Truss is an idiot. Triangulate with terrorists. For goodness sake. Yes, there was no bugger in the audience apart from a few bemused passers-by who might have wanted to get in from the cold. Oh, and Nigel Farage was there wearing his Spitfire socks. But the audience matters less than the reporting. And the Tory client media were more than happy to publish their account of what she was saying, or at least the bits of what she was saying that they wanted to use for their own agenda. And people laughed at the orange one. I think you could look at this and it's utterly comical, but people laughed at the orange one until it was no longer funny. And if there's one place where being a brain-dead moron is no impediment to being successful, it's the US Republican Party machine. The question is, why is Truss doing it? Is she coordinating with like-minded figures in America in order to give her a springboard to pushing her political crusade in the UK again? Or is she just grifting? You know, because as well as throwing in a few terms of her own, she seemed happy to adopt the MAGA language as well. She even used the term deep state herself. She was certainly trying to talk their language. You know, is it just because there's way more money in to be made talking shit in America? Or is it that she still thinks she can resurrect her political career over here? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.